Hello. Okay, so last week I was working on adding grenades to the game. Just as a recap, we'll go in and show how that is now. I've done a little bit of work on it since then. I added an animation for the pistol throwing a grenade and fixed a few bugs with it. So now you can press G to throw a grenade, and after a time it will explode. The grenades are not affected by, well, there is no gravity for them to be affected by. If there was gravity, they would be affected. I also added a grenade counter to the HUD over here. That is currently always going to be at 5 because I have this character set to not require any ammo. But if I was to go on the player and find the item manager, enable using ammo, then when I go into the game now, you can see that when I throw a grenade the counter ticks down, and when I get to 0 I'm not able to throw anymore. So yep, that's just some pretty basic functionality that's in now. Today, what I want to do is do some more experimenting with these grenades, add some more kind of quality of life stuff, just make them more interesting because right now they are fairly boring and standard, which I don't feel like they add too much to the game yet. So, see, I've got a couple tickets I've made. This first is the same one from last week. At some point, obviously, I need to have the AI throw grenades as well, but I'm not going to worry about that quite yet. I want to make them fun for the player to use before I worry about having the AI use them. One small thing, you might have noticed that when the grenades explode, they don't actually do any physics force to these crates, for example, which are just floating around. So that's going to be something that's pretty easy to add, and I think that will give a fair amount of life to them, just to have them do something other than simply deal damage. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with that. Let's hop into our scripts. I think there's already something in here. So I'm using this damage radius script to apply the explosion damage, and I have radius, damage, and force as public fields. This is a script that I created long ago. This was before I added these grenades. So I already have the option to add a force here. Let's just see how this is getting used. So we have, what am I doing that for? Oh, because I multiply. Okay, so yeah, it looks like that's hooked up to work. Let me actually just quickly, I think that this explosion prefab is not actually hooked up to apply force at all. So let's see, that's in effects, grenade explosion. Let's just set the force to 10. I think that this is not enough though, because I think that it's only set up to apply force to objects that have a health. And since these crates are not going to be destructible, they don't actually have a health, so yeah, okay. Not quite there yet, but this should also be pretty easy. So we have this function to basically damage an object. This is an extension method, cool feature of C#. If you don't know, you can define extension methods that take the first argument with the keyword this, which means that you can call it as if it is a method directly on this object. But since hitCall is a collider, this is a Unity class, I can't actually edit that, but I can still create this .damage function. So if we look in this damage function, it takes a damage. We're basically just passing it through a few overloads. So here's what happens when we try to damage an item. If it has a damageable component, that is a component that's set up to receive damage, it just calls that damage function. There's also this parent damageable function that will damage a parent. Currently, the implementations of damageable are, I guess, okay, yeah, damage modifier point for a character. This is for modifying the amount of damage to a certain body part. Like, when you damage the head, it should take more damage than if you damage the torso, for example. And then the health component, which is the main damage receiver. What we want to do is look for a rigid body here, because these crates don't actually have any component on them that can receive damage. These are all just built-in Unity components. But we just want to look for a rigid body and apply a force to it. So what I'm going to actually do here is just go ahead. Another case here, if obj.try get component rigid body. If we have a rigid body, then we want to add a force to that rigid body. Add force. And the force is going to be damage dot direct. Oh, okay, you know what? This damage class, we need to check if this is also a specific type of damage. Damage is point damage. Because a point damage is a type of damage that contains a location, direction, and physics force. So let's, now with that point damage, we can say point damage dot direction, point damage dot, oh, we want direction times point damage dot force. And then force mode is force. Now, if this object has a health component, I believe we are already going to be doing that damage. So let me just, oh, that is not the thing I wanted to go to. When we damaged a health component, I want to check that we're applying the force in the same way to make sure it's consistent. So let's just look for rigid body. No, we don't. This is interesting. So I'm getting confused by my own code here. Something that's very possible to happen. What I want to do is just see where, because I know I have some place I'm currently applying force on damage, and I want to make sure that that makes sense. So where are we actually using this point damage dot force? We aren't. Okay. That is a little concerning. I thought for sure I was applying physics force somewhere. You know, I might have been doing that in projectile. That's... Yeah, okay, I'm doing that in... So this is not what we want, because how I currently have it set up is that projectiles have the option to apply physics force, which makes sense, but we want that to be built into this damage mechanism, not tied just to projectiles. So I think I want to take this out of here. And put that into collider.damage. We actually, so we're going to be doing something in here. I think we want to run this in all cases. So just at the beginning, if the hit component contains a rigid body, here, let's actually because we want to make this general case for 2D and 3D, because this is kind of part of a library, and I don't want to make this too game specific. So let's see, and damage dot for point damage dot force greater than 0. Add force damage dot, or let's say vector 3 impulse equals damage dot point damage dot direction times point damage dot amount. And adding the impulse here, I actually did make a mistake earlier where I was using force mode dot force instead of force mode dot impulse. That would have made it not do very much, because force is expected to be applied every frame, whereas impulse is something that's only applied a single time, which is what we want here. All right. So let's take a look now. All right, that is looking way better. And I think that's also going to apply a force to my character. Let's, oh my, okay. That's quite a bit of force that's getting applied to the main character. That's not quite ideal, is it? Is that because the player's mass is super low? Yeah, I have the mass set to 1 on the player character and set to 10 on these crates, yeah. I thought I had set some reasonable value for mass here. Okay, well, yeah, definitely the player needs to weigh more than 1 kilogram. This is possibly going to mess up other stuff, so it'll be fun to see what other things happen because I'm changing the player's mass. But let's see, what's like a average human weight? Like, I guess, and also if you're wearing power armor, that's going to add some extra weight. So just as a very, let's say 75 kilograms. I think that's in the fairly reasonable ballpark. Okay, we didn't get anything happen. Okay, so yeah, it barely nudges you. I think that's okay though. I don't really want grenades to like throw you that far. And you can always make it like ragdoll you or something if we really want to. Yeah, I think that is pretty good. So, first task, grenades blast physics objects. That is done. I want to now take a look at some of this stuff. This is a new ticket I created where I want to just try out different types of grenade and look at the different things that grenades might be able to do other than just dealing damage. Because I think that's not going to add a whole lot to the fun of playing the game. And I think in a sci-fi game like this, you have opportunities to make grenades do a lot of really neat things. The first thing, I just want to try adding some homing to a grenade. Again, this actually is just going to be still dealing damage, but I want to see if that is I just want to see how that feels. Since it's homing in on an enemy, we are going to actually need an enemy for it to home in on. So I already have this guy in the level. I'm just going to turn him back on. There's our enemy. And we're going to need to make a new grenade prefab. Explораbles. I'm just going to duplicate this hand grenade, and I'll call this one homing grenade. And in our player, just set this homing grenade as the current throwable. Doesn't need any different animations, yet at least. Then for the model, I'm going to replace this with something else that looks like it might be able to home in on to something. So let's look up grenade models. Again, I have a lot of some good assets in here that oh wait, no, and once again I chose model when I really want prefab. I think this is what I want. I'm already using this in another place for some rifle-fired grenades, but I think that this thing looks a little bit better. And yeah, that's a pretty good size for it. Just delete that. It looks a little bit more like, you know, that could be something that is self-propelling. Let's just call that good for now. Then I also need to add the ability to actually track stuff. I think on this existing grenade, I had a script. Yeah, so I have this missile tracking script, which pretty much just uses a moving object, a projectile in this case, and tries to track towards a target. This one's a little complicated, and I think what I actually need to do is make a simple version of this, because this missile tracking script is meant for space combat. There is space combat in the game, and this is used for missiles that will accurately track really fast-moving objects that can quickly change their velocity and could easily avoid a very naive tracking implementation. But in this case, everything's moving pretty slow. I think the naive tracking implementation is what we actually want here. So I'm going to go ahead and just duplicate this guy and call it missile tracking simple. All right, add that to Git. A lot of the stuff we're going to keep. In fact, I might want to set up a base class for these guys at some point. But for now, I'll just keep it separate. So what I really want this to do is, I think, just rotate its velocity towards the target. It's not going to be changing its speed. Actually, no, I want it to be a little bit more realistic than that. I think it'll accelerate towards the target, but it's not going to take the target's movement into account. So we don't need this current acceleration. We do need, I'll keep this tracking delay feature of acceleration. We don't need rotation speed because it is not going to be rotating. Or, you know, might as well keep that. So tracking timer. A lot of this stuff I can keep. Okay, so this intercept thing is what I don't need. So vector3 target location equals target dot vector dot position. I think that's what we want, right? Yes, target dot transform that position. It's been a while since I wrote some of this stuff. Right, I'm not going to worry about that. So we need a max speed. That's something that our other missiles don't have because they will just go as fast as they can. Private max speed equals, let's just give it a value of 20 for now. So vector3 desired velocity equals target location minus transform that position normalized times max speed. Then desired thruster is, well, let's see, we need desired acceleration. Desired acceleration equals desired velocity minus current velocity, which we minus projectile dot velocity. So we have our desired acceleration, desired thruster equals that dot normalized. I think I might want to just keep all this stuff. So vector 3 current acceleration equals what is this? Okay, so this is I don't think I need this thing to actually rotate. I'm just gonna not to rotate it, because then we can just do something very simple and say velocity plus equals acceleration times time not delta time. Okay, I think that with the type of projectile I'm using on these grenades, this is, oh, the collider's wrong too. Let me make that a sphere collider. Yeah, that'll do. Sync with this projectile type. Yeah, I need to have some better way to set the velocity, because when you set the velocity, the value is not going to be actually applied to the rigid body. Let me see. So I think I want to take this guy and convert it to a property with a backing field. And then I want to make this virtual. Then there's a collider projectile. I want to override that. Right, velocity. It is just going to return base dot velocity set. Base dot velocity equals value, rigid body dot velocity equals value. Alright, that should do it. So now when I set velocity in collider projectile, it's going to apply it to the rigid body. Alright, so that should handle the tracking for this grenade. Oh, and I actually have to add that component, so let's see. Missile tracking simple. 300 is probably way too high for the acceleration in a close quarter space. I'm going to reduce that all the way down to 20. That way it takes a second to reach its max speed, which seems pretty reasonable. In fact, that should probably even be lower, but no, I'll just have to experiment with it. So now I just need a way of giving this missile tracking its target, because I have to tell it what target it's going to track or it won't do anything. So I'm going to go back into where I'm dealing with throwing the grenade. That is in held item. In the throw coroutine, we're launching here. Okay, so after we've launched it, I think that's fine. We need to check if this throwing item is looking for a tracking target. Throwing item dot target component missile tracking. Yep, and this one is, yeah, so here's why I really should make a base class for these guys to share, because that way I don't have to assume it's one type of tracking here, which is not great. But then I just need to say tracking.target equals, I'm going to be assigning it to something. What do I want it? I think that the target is going to be specified. So our channel script, this is how we pass values from the player controller into the things that actually take action. I think that this has a space in it. Oh, let me just open it directly. Tracking target. So there is a way for our controller to pass a tracking target to our channels. Equals last channels.tracking target. That doesn't fully solve the issue though. We're now passing it from this channel script, but there still needs some way to actually determine this value in the channels. That is something that the player controller is going to be responsible for setting. I find it really useful to keep this separation, as it's just as easy for an AI, in the case of my game, a behavior tree, to set this value. But let's just do it for the player now. For now, I'm just going to do something a little bit hacky, and when you press the grenade button, it's going to try to set that, because currently that's the only time you need it, and I don't want to waste computation time trying to look for a tracking target every frame when you really only need it when you're throwing a grenade. So this is going to be update actions input. We're using the new input system here, or it's not that new anymore. I've just started using it very recently, and it's way better than the old one. But let's see. So if channels.grenade, then we're going to need to find something that we're looking at and set it to the tracking target. I think I have a way to do this in my spaceship controller. So I'm going to go look at that code and see how I did it there. So, okay, where are we setting the current and locked target? Here we go. So how is this? It's going to take the mouse position. In this case, we don't need to worry about the mouse position. We transform that ray into, okay, don't need to worry about this stuff. And I'm going to be looking through all of the trackable objects in the world. There probably shouldn't be that many, and we're not doing this every frame, so that should be okay. I'm I am going to just copy this code. So let's see. Pivot void update tracking target. And we're just going to call that here. So this is checking if it's ourself, which we don't want. So let's see. Do we have a, I think it's called a character. I'm just gonna character. Right, so if the object is character, just ignore it. I need this ray. In this case, the ray is going to be facing dir equals transform.position. Then the direction is channels.rotation times forward. So just the forward direction that this character is looking. Actually, we could make this a little bit, let's do view target, that view target being the camera. So we're basically just looking for the enemy with the lowest dot product, I guess, or the greatest dot product. Okay, and we're normalizing that, so it's not gonna, this isn't actually taking the distance into account. I don't know if this is gonna be what I want, but let's go ahead and try that for now. Channels.tracking target equals nearest. All right. Let's see how that is. I think everything should be set up now. So there's our guy. Yep. Getting a null reference exception, that's fun. What's going on here? This thing isn't getting called. Okay, well, rigid body was null here, and that it is valid for that to be null here, so I think that's a good thing to check. However, rigid body should not be null. Oh, unless, where is this? Okay, you know what? This, it doesn't, I can change how this works now, because fire will set the velocity, and now when we set the velocity, we're affecting the rigid body. And the problem is that fire is getting called before we check for the rigid body. So I'm just going to say rigid body equals get component rigid body. Then we don't need this, we just call base.fire. All right, well, it is not tracking anything. I also am going to go ahead and disable that guy's AI so that he's not wandering around shooting me. That is BT controller. We're just going to disable auto start behavior. And I don't believe it is working yet, as evidenced by the fact that this is just not moving at all. I'm going to go ahead and do some debugging here. Let's first debug this thing. See if I can... So this seems like the most likely culprit, that the tracking target is just not getting set because it's not finding something for some reason. So hit our breakpoint. So there are trackable objects. One is the player, one is our enemy. That is expected. First one is, yeah, the first one's the enemy. So this should be working. So what is this dot value? That looks good. So we are gonna get, this one is the nearest. Next time around, we continue. Okay, so tracking target is getting set. Oh, you know what? Is tracking target getting cleared every frame? Yeah, so, okay, this is the problem. I think that tracking target, even though we're setting it to a valid value, we don't use it immediately. So that's getting cleared every frame. I think the fix should be pretty simple, because that's something I can configure. Characters. Yeah, let's just not reset that. However, it is, oh, okay, it is working. I think they wait far too long before they start tracking. What's the current? It's currently set to a 2-second tracking delay. Yeah, that's way too much. I want to make it like 0.3, 0.4. And I think the acceleration is indeed too high because it's probably... That's funny. So, okay. Kind of orbits in because it needs to also detonate itself as soon as it gets in range. Yeah, so this is... The tracking is too strong. Let's just try making that 10. I think the max speed is fine. So this thing, I think I just want to give it a private float. Detonation radius equals, let's say 2 meters. If vector c dot square magnitude sum dot position minus target location greater than detonation radius squared. Then we want to blow it up. Let's see. I think we just want to. I'm just going to plug in a on destroy prefab in here. Private game object on explosion. That is not how you spell explosion. That's right. Yep. And spawn explosion prefab. Could be spawning it at the current position. At default rotation, no parent. That's all we need. And then we need to despawn the missile. Then since I added a new field for that explosion prefab, I have to hook it up here as well. I could have just used the one from this time to live script, which is the current explosion, but I didn't want to reference that script in something that's kind of unrelated. So let's just find this thing and drag it in here. Oh, now it's just blowing up immediately. That can't be right. That's because I'm checking if the radius is greater than the detonation radius, not less than. Yeah. Alright, still, I think the tracking is a little much. Let's make it 5. Yeah, because I can like really aim off and it'll still hit. Still way too high. Imagine if I had kept it at the old value of like 300. Okay, you know, I'm starting to think that it's not actually using that acceleration value at all. So, yeah, okay. We need to clamp this desired acceleration. Vector 3 dot clamp magnitude. Okay. So now 1 is probably far too low. This is seeming a bit better. Yeah, so if you're aiming way off, that's not going to hit. But if you're, you know, pretty close, then yeah. Those are pretty fun. could imagine like flying around, tossing a few of those guys. Maybe if you're, dealing with an enemy that moves a bit faster, that could be pretty useful. Although it might be too fast for the grenade to hit. Anyway, I want to go ahead and try something else. So the next thing I'm interested in is a radar grenade. This is something that's not going to actually deal damage to the enemies, but it's going to highlight or outline them so you can see them. And say this is something that you might throw around a corner when you don't know what's ahead of you, and it'll show you what enemies are there. So first of all, we need to handle being able to outline enemies in the first place. That's not something I do yet. I do have a script I do have a library here called Easy Perform and Outline. It's very good, very easy to use. Let's just hook that up on this guy. So, I'm gonna go into the model prefab and hook up a outline script. Easy, or is it just, oh, it's outlineable. All right. So it's got all the objects. I don't think this is previewable in editor. See, but I do have some other outlines set up, so let me just copy those to make sure the values are set to something reasonable. Do I not? Whatever, let's just try it with that basic outline. Oh, okay, so actually, I was wrong. You can preview it in editor. That is very useful. So, let's see. What? You can preview in editor when it's not selected, I guess? That's a little annoying. Maybe if I lock the inspector, yeah, that does what I need. Back. So I want it to be red. And yeah, so changing it to front back just there was so that I can have it look differently when they're behind something. I think I want to use this red color for both cases. This is just 255. I want to make it. I'd like to be able to copy the hex code, but apparently it's not allowed, so it's just 217.00. All right, and then we're going to, for stuff that you can't see, I'm going to do some kind of filling of it. Is this what I want? What options do we have? Definitely not that. Dots could work. Not color fill, so I think it's either interlaced or dots. Let's try interlaced. So, like 135. The angle, want fewer of them. So that. size 3. No, that's not. I'm going to keep it at 1, but increase the gap size. All right, yeah, it's looking pretty good. Just going to apply this to that model. And then we also want it to be disabled by default. All right, so we're going to need a reference to that outlineable. That's going to go in this character rig script. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Edit script. Okay, so then when the character gets hit by this radar grenade effect, we're basically just going to enable that outline for a certain period of time. So where are we using this character rig? Where do we have a reference to that? It's in character IK. None of those places are going to work. Might need a new place that has a reference to this. Okay. Where do I want to put this? I think I'll put it in trackable object, open character. Then this rig, we can't get it in awake because it's spawned dynamically. So we want to get it in a special callback called onSwappable mesh changed, which we have here. Oh. Or we could just do it in start because, yeah. Start. Yep. The rig, then I'm just going to add a function to apply outline. So let's see, private expiration timer, outline timer. Float time. Null, we're just going to create a new one. Else. Okay, so the outline timer might already be running. And it might already have a greater time than time. So if we have this, timer.set, else if time is greater than timer.remaining, timer.expiration equals time, timer.set. Then we need to actually turn it on. So I'm going to need to publicly expose that outline. If big dot, if not outline, just return. Such a true. Then we just need an update. I bet this thing already has an update. Do I need to override it? Guess it doesn't. Update. If rig dot outline and rig dot outline dot enable not enabled, and line timer dot expired dot outline dot enabled equals false. Oh, wait, no, this is outline, and outline is enabled, and outline timer, because this might be null. So we disable the outline after that time. Okay. Now, I think I'm going to take that damage radius script I'm going to copy this and change it to enable outline radius. It's going to have radius, not damage or force, layer mask, no fall off. It's going to need a time as well. Why are these public? These should be private. Sometimes I hate how inconsistent I am with naming shit. Okay, time, and then we want to give this a value of like 5 seconds by default. Why do I need this coroutine again? I don't remember why I needed this, and I think I added this last week in the stream, so I very quickly forgot what the purpose of this was. Oh, you know what it was? Okay, that's what it was, because we don't want it to happen immediately when you spawn it. We want it to wait until... No, that's not right. Alright, I'm just gonna worry about that later and just do the same thing. So this is still the same. Still need to do raycast. And we don't need to damage. We still need to say if hit dot try get component character that needs to be out. High. What's it called? Oh, outline. Outline. And the time being given by time. All right. Effects. Don't want that to be locked in more. Okay. I think this is not going to be a particle system anymore. I have to think about what the effects for this are going to look like. I think I just want it to be like a red sphere that grows quickly. Maybe I will make it a particle system, but a very simple one. Okay, so let's name this to radar explosion. It is spawnable, it is pool particle effect, it is not damage radius. It is instead outline radius. Let's say radius of 5. Is that too big? No, I think that's pretty good. Layers, player, enemies. Needs to hit normal stuff. Also, in this, I am going to have to assign that outlineable to the character rig and unassigned in the player because I don't want the player to be outlined. Okay, let's go back to editing this. I'm gonna delete most of that stuff. So let's see, delete the lightning. Delete this. So what is each effect doing? If I just delete or disable all these. I think that's kind of what I want. Maybe I'll keep that glow. Nova, I'm gonna delete. Okay. So we have these 3 effects. And let's make it red to go along with the red outline. Let's just make all these red. The fireball should still be white. I think this thing needs to be more intense. Oh, okay, so the reason it's not showing very well is because it's like a blue color. Let's this one also a blue color. think I want it to repeat a few times. Let's make it 5. Let's just add a few more then. Don't know exactly how this works, but 2.4.6. Okay, I'm going to want to do that with the other parts of this particle system too. Actually, I like it better like this. Okay, then let's just add those bursts. Two, 4. That's not seeming quite right. Oh, it's because I'm not really understanding what the interval does, but it looks like maybe it... No, that wasn't the issue. Man, Unity's particle system can be pretty confusing sometimes. So why are these ones coming so quick? And these ones aren't. Alright, I'm very confused by this. And I'm going to go take a very quick bathroom break. I'll be right back. And I'm back. So, we are still trying to figure out why this particle system is behaving a little bit weirdly when this one and this one seem to be showing at a better rate. Also, maybe that's okay. But yeah. Something to do with the duration. Durations are all the same. Maybe that's not the worst thing. I don't know. I don't want to keep messing with this and not get anything else done. So I'm going to save this for later. And yeah, I'll figure out what's going on with this thing at some other point. But for now, let's just... I'm going to make this bigger so that it fills up the full radius. 2. Maybe need 3. 3.5. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Then we need this one to also be bigger. Cool. Then, so that's the particle effect. Have that enable outline radius. Let's... Okay, and soft particles are working. I wonder if I want that to be aligned on the up axis. I wonder if that would... No, I don't want that. I think that you're only going to see half of it. I wonder if I want to, like, draw this thing without depth testing so that you can always see the full particle. Because what I'm thinking, this isn't like necessarily something that literally is visible in the world. This is like something that's part of your character's HUD, and it's showing them where the radar grenade is taking effect. So yeah, I probably will need to draw that over. Or maybe, maybe a particle system just isn't what I want to use for this. Maybe I want an outline with just like a sphere. Let me see. I'm just going to go ahead and try 3 object, sphere, move the collider. We're going to need some kind of invisible, or actually, let me just, if I make it shadows only, and then I put an outline. Actually, we don't want, outline. So I kind of, you need the render enabled, so I need a material that is just not going to render anything, I guess. Because what I basically want is just basic probably just the same thing as I have on the other plane. So angle 135, size. I do need to not show this. What's the easiest way to get something to not be visible other than just disabling this? I'm going to go ahead and make a new material for this. So I think that's the only option I have, unless it's just even going to work with custom materials. Well, I just try a custom material and find out. Okay, so yeah, it works with custom materials because that's one that I created in Amplify Shader Editor. I think I'm just going to go ahead and create another one in Amplify Shader Editor. And have it not do anything. So, shaders, Amplify Shader. I'm going to make it legacy unlit, invisible. Now we have to wait for Amplify Shader Editor to open. Here it is. Okay, that doesn't take too long. I do love this tool. It's honestly way nicer than Shader Graph in my opinion. Plus, I'm using the legacy render pipeline, so I can't use Shader Graph anyway. Amplify has done everything I've needed it to. So, let me just remember how this works. Depth, Z-right off, Z-test. Default, or guess always, but that doesn't matter, I don't think. Offset doesn't matter. Blend mode, yeah, we want it to be opaque. I mean, we actually aren't rendering it at all. Can I just make the render queue not, because I feel like just rendering this is going to have some cost. Not that that's going to be very, what if I just, oh, okay, you can't put nothing in pass. Okay, ignoring performance, I think I wish I could put this at never. If I just disable those. So if we don't write any colors and we don't write to the depth, I think that should be sufficient. Go ahead and create a new material that uses this shader. Where did it put that shader? Is it in custom? It should be in custom, but that's not. Yeah, I should just custom invisible. There it is. So now if I apply this invisible material to that sphere, it is in fact invisible and still has an outline. That seems to be about right. I don't like that interior though. Maybe if it was a lot fainter, it could be okay. I don't know why there's like these weird. I don't know what's up with that. Let's drop the alpha, these lines down a lot. Then drop the alpha of the gaps even more. Oh, wait, this is animated, isn't it? Oh, didn't even realize that. Why are they converging here? Why are they converging on that diagonal? Like coming up from the bottom left of the screen to up here. That is super weird and I don't like it. Oh. And when you put it to 0, then man. Why is it like that? Anyway, okay, I'm going to increase the outline radius on that thing. Maybe I can't change the outline radius on that thing. I'm not liking this. I like the particle system better. Screw it. Particle system wins. Well, anyway, that was fun, but we're not going to use that shader or that weird transparent sphere. It just wasn't looking quite right. I think I have that, so I think it should all work now. I need to make a new grenade type. As models. Let's make a new grenade type for radar grenade. This one is not going to be homing. Its explosion is not going to be grenade explosion. It's going to be radar explosion. Let's look at what this guy looks like. I'm not going to have too many options for this thing. Let's see. If I look in some of these assets I have imported, is there anything in props that would make a good radar grenade? What this siren? Nah. How about this mine? That actually... Yeah, I think this works. Just scale it down a bunch. Delete the other one. Yeah, that seems like it could be some kind of radar device. And go ahead and equip it on the player. So, in what way is this one going to go horribly wrong? No way at all. It actually looks good. I don't think that timer is really enough. Yeah. That seems like it could be legitimately useful. Maybe I want this one to be like sticky. I think that wherever this one hits, it should just stay there. And probably it should also be moving towards the actual point you're aiming at rather than just the direction you're looking in. Okay, yeah, I want this one to kind of magnetize wherever you hit it and just disable the rigid body when it impacts. So that's going to be in this collider projectile. I want it to stop on hit. I think then I want to add a new field that's going to kinematicify the rigid body on hit. And also maybe parent itself. Well, let's just... kinematic on hit. What can I override here? What do I want to override? On hit object. Is this what I'm doing? Yeah. So if rigid body is kinematic equals true, and kinematic on hit. Put this one first because that is a bit more efficient that way. should do it. And okay, so that needs to last a lot longer. I like, it could be interesting being able to highlight enemies like that. I wonder if I want to have another way to do that. Also, I think his gun needs to be included in that outline, or else it's going to look a little bit weird like this. Oh, it's still rotating when it hits. That's weird. I wouldn't think, if it's kinematic, why is it... Oh, you know, I didn't actually set that kinematic thing to true, so yeah, it's just setting the velocity to 0 when it hits. I'm gonna make kinematic on hit as well. Or I could also just make it go off right away when it hits. Yeah, why don't I just do that? Just make it go off right away, destroy and hit to true, lingo to 0. Yeah. There's no reason for it to stick around after it hits. Alright, let's change that radar time. Let's make that a whole 20 seconds. I think, what else do I need to do? I wanted to include the gun in the part that is radared. So, let's see. The gun is going to be parented to the mesh, or to the skeleton, and the skeleton itself is a child of the object that has the outline. So I think, assuming the gun exists, the outline should be able to auto-detect it. It's just that the outline, for obvious reasons, isn't auto-detecting stuff every frame, because that would be horrible for performance. But when you change the equipped weapon, I just want to recalculate which renderers the outline contains. I wonder if there's a way to do that dynamically. I hope there is. See, that's all editor stuff. Void update outlined renderers. Renderers. Outline dot. Does it have a function to? So is this? I have the source for this. I don't know if I should be showing this source actually. That is a paid asset. Probably don't want to be leaking people's source code on Twitch. But, so, is there a function dot render? Add all child renderers to rendering list. That is probably what I want. And what is this? So there's, I think I want all. I guess that's the default, so I don't need it. And I want to clear it before I do that. I'm just going to take this over to my other screen for a second, because I need to look at the source code and I don't want to show that on Twitch. So, yeah, so it looks like this is going to cause a slight issue where I'm going to be adding renders to that list twice. How do I just make that list empty? Oh, okay, I completely missed the line where it's clearing that list before it adds everything, so never mind. I'm all good. Should just call that. In fact, I don't even need to have this function. What I do need is to, when the player equips a different item, I need to look at this and call that function that checks all the renders and children. Let's see. Chart. The manager equals. Item manager dot. I probably need to remember that. Item manager. Item equipped. Is it? Plus equals update. And I need a private function. Oh, so I guess I did need that function that I just deleted. But I'm going to name it item manager. Item equipped. That's going to need to take in a held item and an int for the item that's equipped and the slot that it's equipped into. So when new item is equipped, all we need to do is say outline.add all child renderers to rendering list. Then on destroy, we're going to unsubscribe from that. All right. So now, with any luck, that will have worked. And this guy's equipped items will be part of that outline. Yes! In fact, it worked perfectly the first try. How cool is that? Okay. Oh yeah, and then other thing I wanted to do is to make it fly towards the point you're looking at. So if I throw it right now, it's not actually going to necessarily be, well, okay, well in this case the collider for this door is a bit funky. But, okay, here's something that's simpler. If I throw it right here, see how it just flies right past the floor? Because even though I'm aiming at the floor, it's a little offset from my aim reticle, crosshair, whatever, and it's not going where I aim. I want it to go right where I'm aiming. So let's see, I think I have an aim target thing in my, what do I call it? I have an aim target thing in my channels, but I don't think I'm setting it based on a raycast of where the point you're actually looking at. I think I'm just setting it based on the direction you're looking at. So I think it's time to go ahead and update the aim target to be the exact point. Yeah, see, that's not very helpful here. We're gonna have to do a raycast here. That should be pretty simple. We're gonna need data. So we have, okay, so we have aim layers. I think I tried to do this at one point before and it wasn't really working, but I'm gonna go ahead and try it again. So I'm gonna do ray equals new ray dot aim, not channel, view target dot transform dot position, view target dot transform dot forward. I think it's wanting me to cache that, which sure. View transform. I don't know why calling dot transform is not great for performance, but I always hear that, and I'm just going to go ahead and trust it because, yeah. If we actually are going to want to keep this if there is no raycast result. Ray dot position plus ray dot direction. If physics dot raycast. Max distance, let's just do 1,000. Layer mask is aim layers. And then the hit is supposed to go here. Out, raycast, hit. Channels.aimTarget equals hit dot point. Else. Do that. Let's see how that works. So this will affect guns as well. So this could mess some stuff up. Also, this actually won't affect the grenade yet because I have the grenade set to just use your direction rather than your aim target. And we're getting null reference exceptions. Oh. For some reason. Oh, you know what that is? That is this guy. Have a character rig that's not parented to an actual character. Of course, I kind of want to avoid that exception, so I'm just going to say if item manager. Cool. So the first things I need to check if guns still work. I think where it's gonna matter is like Alright, cool. That's actually good. Well, we're getting exceptions now. Right, player doesn't have an outline. Oop, what's up with my mouse? Okay. So yeah, I don't know why I was having trouble with that before, but I think it's working now. Unless it's not doing anything different and I have the aim layers not initialized. I think those are in... That was in the player controller, right just down at the bottom here. Aim layers, enemies walkable. Well, yeah, that looks right. Cool, so let's update the grenade now. So that was in held item. So here's where we give it the direction it's getting launched in. So what we need to do is last channels dot aimed target minus throwing item dot transform that position minus okay. So now, yep, that does appear to be hitting exactly where I aim. And if I'm right on the edge here, yeah. Well, that worked pretty well. All right. So of all the grenades I've made, I think this radar grenade is the most interesting. You know, the basic grenade is pretty boring. It just deals damage. I might go ahead and just keep that in the game because there were definitely situations where that could be useful. The homing grenade, I'll have to see if I can find an application for that. But this radar grenade, I could imagine that being pretty useful if you want to take like a semi-stealthy approach where you're, you know, you want to see what enemies are around the corner. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and hop into my actual level because I want to test this thing out in the real game. This level isn't much yet, but at least there's some actual enemy encounters that I can test this grenade out in. Let's put in that radar grenade. I'm going to disable the player from using ammo for now because I don't have any pickups for this grenade yet. And I just want to kind of spam it. So open airlock. Oh. All right. Well, so that's an issue. What's it even hitting? Is it hitting the trigger? Yeah, it must be hitting like the trigger. Yeah, okay. You know what it is? These things are set to hit triggers, aren't they? Trigger interaction, ignore. There we go. Now it's not hitting triggers. Tab 2. Alright, it's hitting that guy. I want it to also... There's another guy behind this glass, and I want it to show that guy. I wonder if... So that guy shouldn't be in the... Oh, he's about to see me. Don't want the enemies to detect me. Okay, so it... Oh, so... It looks like it is hitting that guy, but because he's getting called. That's the issue. He's getting called. And it also is not always hitting him. Okay, we've got a couple issues here, because I do want it to penetrate glass, I think. I think that could be a one interesting use of it. But the main issue is just that that guy's getting called. And when he's getting called, his outline doesn't show up. I wonder... how that's normally dealt with. Let me... mess around a bit, so... Looking at it from this perspective, I think I have the calling preview. Yeah, I need to enable the calling preview. window rendering occlusion culling. Now obviously I could just disable occlusion culling for now and that would make it work, but I do want, you know, occlusion culling, so. And ideally I would like to have occlusion culling for enemies when they're not targeted by radar. So you not, I mean, yeah, obviously it's not static, because he moves. That's not the issue, but actually, I didn't know occlusion culling even worked on dynamic objects. Dynamic occlusion. If I just disable that, will that fix it? That does fix it. Okay, so I think that while while a character is outlined, I need to disable dynamic occlusion on their models. I need to make a, so let's see, private void set dynamic occlusion enabled on, let's just keep the name is that for now. I'm just gonna loop through everything in the outline, dot outline targets. This should probably have a renderer. Indeed it does. So target dot renderer dot occlusion when dynamic equals value. And let me do this. First we need to disable it. So dynamic occlusion enabled false. We want it to be true, actually, when this is going to be outline.enabled. Then we also need public void set outline enabled. Okay, then I don't think we want to expose this anymore. Or I guess we, okay. Why is that thing still showing? It should be dynamic occlusion enabled. Oh, you know, Maybe it's just because the game's not running. That's weird. So right now, for some reason that thing is still visible. What the hell is going on? Okay. Seems like... Okay, so my occlusion might be just kind of funky, actually. I don't know if I've baked in recently. But, okay, clearly the occlusion is getting applied. Well, that's just frustum calling. The real question is, does this fix the issue? It does not. So this guy is still getting called. So that's not taking effect. Is everything in here correct? So dynamic occlusion enabled should be when we're not outlined. That would be the issue, and that was why dynamic occlusion was working perfectly when the thing was outlined and not working at all when it wasn't. There we go. That is much better. And if I go ahead and preview occlusion calling, right now he is visible because of the outline. Oh, they heard that because there's air. Oh, okay. Now they found me. However, this guy is still getting called. I think. Oh, he left. Whatever. I think it's working. Alright. Looks like got the radar grenades working pretty well. I'm going to actually just go ahead and play through a bit more. That's what I initially wanted to do before I found this bug, so let's go ahead and do that. Maximize this view. So you come into here, open the airlock. I still need to fix the issue where that thing's not quite penetrating the window very well. But let's just say I was very lucky and decided to throw it right here where it actually shows him. Show the other guy though. Alright, so now I can see that those... Okay, so what I need to do is extend the range of that actually, because I think it could be much wider and still work, still not be overpowered or anything, so. shoot that guy. This guy heard me. Should probably get the AI to try to investigate sounds, now that I think about it. They do look towards sounds, but they don't investigate them. So that would be a thing worth adding for sure. Go ahead and melee this guy. He's floating around in 0G. I'm gonna grab his gun. Oh, I can't grab his gun because I'm not using ammo right now. So I'm full on ammo. Now, if I had alerted those guys, they would have called reinforcements through this elevator. But since I took them out stealthily, I am clear to move forward. Let's go ahead and depressurize. Going back into a oxygen-free environment where they will not be able to hear my weapons. You know, I should turn the sound on. There's no reason not to. This game doesn't have a lot of sound yet. Sound pass is still something I'm gonna have to do. So. Let's go ahead and just get in here. Shoot these guys. So, yeah, so actually, that guy sitting behind cover there, that would be a perfect use of that homing grenade. Because what you could do is kind of chuck that up towards the ceiling and have it go back down towards the guy behind cover. So, yeah, you know, actually, I think I will use it for exactly that reason. Alright, this guy dropped a shotgun. I'm going to grab that. I've got a Marine here who's a bit of a tougher enemy. Not that much, though. Just has a bit more health. Who's shooting me now? Where'd you come from? So yeah, one thing I need to figure out is that it's kind of hard to keep track of where enemies are. I think that radar thing I was working on today might actually be the key. Because if I can give you some way to kind of tag enemies, other than chucking a radar grenade, which you're going to be limited on, then what I can do is, yeah, just give you a way to tag enemies to keep track of the ones you've already seen. It might have to be a little bit more subtle than what I have for the radar right now, though, because I don't think you're going to want to be seeing that really big red outline and lines going through every enemy that you've found. Go ahead. So you're opening a big hatch here. It kind of swings open slowly. This is pretty much getting towards the end of what I have built. I haven't been focusing on level design, but I do have this mini boss fight that is kind of semi-complete here. This guy, the grenade's not going to work on him because he doesn't have his outliner set up yet. Easy enough to do. And dead. Alright. And of course, when I go out here, there is nothing else. I'm going to have like this kind of part where you're walking outside of a spaceship right here, I think. So that'll be kind of neat. Maybe sometime soon I'll do some level design on here. But anyway, I think that this is a pretty good place to stop. We Did some cool stuff today. Just to kind of recap, I started out with just making some improvements to grenades, having them blast away physics objects and fixing some bugs there. And then I messed around with a few different grenade types. I tried out a homing grenade that initially I kind of thought this homing grenade wasn't going to be too useful. But then playing the game, I realized that this could actually be really helpful for hitting enemies behind cover. So I think that that's something I am going to keep in the game and try to tune it so that it is useful specifically for that. Radar grenade is what I was just working on that will show you nearby enemies. When I have a mini-map working, that'll also be showing enemies on the mini-map. Then I've got a couple more that I want to do at some point. Maybe next stream, maybe off stream, we'll see. Shockwave grenades are going to be basically just ragdolling the enemies but not doing much damage to them. I thought that might be something kind of interesting, just kind of to disrupt the enemies. Maybe you throw the shockwave grenade, get them out of cover or whatever, then you can shoot them. Then a bullet grenade, the idea of that was like something where it would be launching out targeted bullets towards nearby enemies. So that's all stuff that I'll be hopefully trying in the future and maybe coming up with new ideas too. I think these grenades offer a lot of possibilities for doing kind of neat things. But yeah, that is all I'm going to do today, I think. I'm going to go ahead and sign off here. So can't really tell if anybody's watching at this point, but if anybody is, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope to see you soon. I'll probably be streaming again around the same time next week. Thank you, and goodbye.